everyone, this is Darren here with Creativity Unleashed. In this video we are going to be building my very first styrofoam house. This house is just under 400 square feet. It's coated with shotcrete, plaster cement render inside and out. I built a light metal skeleton here. You can see the metal structure. It's all out of thin wall tubing pretty much. We'll have more videos on the subject soon. There used to be a slanted cement roof here over the porch. We knocked that off and we're framing it up to pour a slab. And then we'll continue on with the metal posts like the rest of the structure has. The only difference is we're setting the spaces between these posts at 1.20 meters, which is the width of the styrofoam panels. So those will be able to just pop right into place there and be attached with screws and mesh. I'm not going to be covering the installation of the styrofoam panels. There are quite a few good videos on the subject made by several of the manufacturers. Here are the styrofoam panels arriving. So here are the polystyrene panels. This is a scrap piece here, but they weigh almost nothing. Extremely light. They have mesh, the same mesh on both sides. So they end up being very economical and lightweight. And you can see that we have the shotcrete mix here. We're having it mixing over there. I'll show you what we've got going on. Right here you can see this is the bathroom area. So this uses a compressed air, and it's essentially like a shovel that shoots it with compressed air and made it. I made this group sprayer myself. It probably took me 3-4 hours to make. It has a pipe, a tube, some sheet metal, nozzles, and it's all kind of precise, but it's relatively simple. Here we're in the bathroom. This is a shower area over here. Commode, a sink, and then a washer dryer unit over here. And we're working on spraying right now the closet segment, and we even have the upper shelf there. It definitely is possible to simply throw the cement on the wall by hand with trowels and scoops or shovels, but a lot of it ends up on the floor, and I don't think it compacts the cement as well and doesn't stick to the wall as well. I'm using a 5 horsepower air compressor that I made in a previous video. I'm pretty sure you could get away with a 2 or 2.5 horsepower compressor depending the tank size and how continuous you plan to be spraying for. So I'm spraying on the first layer, and the main objective is to cover all the surfaces and get it where the cement starts bonding to the styrofoam and the mesh. And then as that starts chemically going off, we'll continue to add more cement until we're starting to cover the meshes. So the mix ratio we are using for the shotcrete is 4 parts sand to 1 part cement, and we are just weighing that out using a wheelbarrow to mix it. Of course, a standard cement mixer would be way better, but I don't have one. I'm also adding waterproofing. This helps keep moisture transfer down from going through the walls. Here's the Portland cement that we're weighing out. We're also adding fiber reinforcement to the cement. Later on, I also started adding cement plasticizer, and that means it can use a little bit less water, and that makes for a slightly stronger product. So then we thoroughly mix it with a shovel to incorporate everything. The fiber is one of the last items we add so that it doesn't blow out. We like to keep it in the water because the fine fibers you don't really want to breathe. And then we use the drill here to blend it all extremely well and make sure the product is all very consistent. Another key thing to do is to sift the sand. You can get all different kinds of mesh sizes. We often use kind of a rabbit mesh to get the larger rocks out. We didn't do that at first, and we had the spray gun continuously getting rocks in it, and it would stop the spraying. We'd have to reach in and pull the rocks out of the sprayer, and that was a bit annoying for sure. The styrofoam panels are attached to the slab with rebar. You drill holes about 3/8 inch rebars to 1/2 inch rebars depending on your application. We use 3/8, and then you put them at around 40 centimeter spacing or whatever your engineers think is best. A lot of the manufacturers will give you those specifications for your panels, and depending on your wind loads and all of that. And then the overlapping mesh is wired together. You can use just simple pliers and like your rebar wire, or they sell pincers that you can use, or there's some really exotic electric wire tying machines that I looked them up and were like $1,600. So I was like, pliers and pincers are good for me, and those worked out really well. So once we have the shotcrete layer thick enough, we just use the tile laying trowel that has 1/4 by 1/4 grooves, and we pull it straight up. And then later, before it's fully set up, we will run them horizontally to grooves, and that will help the last plaster finish layer to stick really well, and you'll ensure really good adhesion. Here you can see this is the last layer of plaster, and you usually do this the next day or the day after. This, of course, is the final plaster layer that we're putting on right now, and this is a different mix ratio. This is, of course, fine sand that's been sifted, and then we do 5 parts sand to 1 part cement. So it's a weaker mix, and the reason for that is when it goes off, when the chemical reaction goes off, it cracks less. And we also add lime to the mix, and that helps it to be a smoother, easier to spread mix that also cracks less and is sort of self-healing. Adding extra lime to your cement can help it to when it rains and water gets on the wall, it'll help fill in cracks over time. It's kind of a self-healing property of adding lime to the mix. Another important thing to consider is adding float masters. Some people just use cement and a level to make like their reference edge as their float master, but I welded tubing and flat stock in the corners and different places to use as the float master, and that just keeps everything true and square and plumb and all of the good stuff. We used the same styrofoam panels as a drop ceiling. We sprayed some cement on top of it, and of course we sprayed a cement onto the ceiling. They do make a special scoop sprayer for ceilings. You may be wondering how we put all the installations in the wall. Here we're just using a bolt cutter to cut away some of the mesh to install a vent pipe. You can see how some of the bigger pipes and drain pipes are cut out. And then on smaller runs where you're just doing conduit or maybe a water line, you can just use a heat gun and melt away the pathway for the tube to slide through. Of course, on certain corners or tight joints, you might have to cut away a few meshes, but they do sell flat mesh pieces that you can wire in place on top of them afterwards to repair the damaged segment and make it like new. Here you can see all of the electrical is now installed. Where the sub panel goes, we just have to put in the box. We'll cement that in place. You can see the plumbing in the bathroom is pretty much finished. And we are just on to getting the first shotcrete on the inside of the house. Another very important aspect is bracing the walls. The inside was braced. I didn't show that very well, but we used metal tubing to brace the inside of the walls before we sprayed the outside. Once the outside is sprayed, it locks everything in place, and you can take down all the internal bracing material and continue on with your shotcrete and plaster finishes. Another important detail to note is that they make corner meshes that of course go in all the corners and like the top of the ceiling, and of course here on the floor I put down styrofoam, so I put them in the corners there. They also make flat meshes that you can use to do around like door frames and window seals and things like that to help prevent the corners from cracking. They also make a U-shape mesh, and those you put around doors and of course around window openings. And window and door openings are extremely easy to cut out. You can just mark where you want them, snip everything with the bolt cutters, and then use just like a standard wood saw or reciprocating saw and cut the styrofoam extremely easily, pull the panel out, and then reinforce it with U-shaped mesh and maybe some corner meshes in the corners, and you're ready for your shotcrete. Styrofoam isn't as insulative as some of the other insulations on the market. I went with a 4-inch or right around 12 centimeter thick panel, and it works out to pretty near R16. If you want higher insulation, you can have them ordered thicker. The width on these panels is standard at 1.20 m, but the lengths can be purchased at any lengths basically you want, and they'll just make those up custom for you. Each panel is around $50 for essentially the 10-foot length, and the entire house used about $2,800 of styrofoam, and that includes the ceiling and floor because I wanted the entire box to be insulated. And it used another about $1,200 of sand and cement. So one of the things I would do differently is I would make more float masters that are insertable into the wall ahead of time before spraying the shotcrete. Adding more float masters at a convenient distance apart makes it where you can keep your walls straighter and more plumb more easily, and it saves a lot of time and work. Because without them, you have to add cement to the wall and check it with a level and make a reference and then do that on the other side and then fill in the area, and it's a whole lot more work. So that is definitely one thing I would do differently. You can see here we have the ceiling just about finished. I made a separate scoop sprayer that is aimed up, and it's for shooting the ceilings. It's still challenging to do, but it definitely did it a lot better than the other model. Here you can see it now with the final finishing coat. And we do a lot of floating, so you have a sponge, you throw water at the wall, and you just work and work it, and keep working it. They do make an electric like troweling tool that I am hoping to get soon for the next time I do a project like this. It would make it a lot easier, but you definitely can do it like this by hand. And this morning I just made a new tool. This one right here is for doing the columns, so that should look really cool. I'd never done cement molding like this. It's relatively common here in the area. But I made my first molds for doing this, and we of course roughened up the surface of the walls a bit, attached straight edges for a reference for the metal like tools to travel in, and then you just spray your cement mix on and you keep going over it until it finishes up. Here you can see we're doing the crown molding in the house, and it comes out really well. We could have done a little bit better on the crown molding on the corners, but for the first time for either one of us to be working on this, it came out, I think, extremely well. And I think it's kind of fun to learn the old techniques that used to be really common. So we're back in the bathroom. We're attaching the boards to the wall. This is for the tile references to get the tile done. You can see in this shot that we have the window put in. That's a fixed window. And then here you can see how the tiles coming along. I'm using some pretty large format. There are 60 by 60 centimeter tiles, and I'm really loving how it's all coming out. You can see here that the ceiling is now textured. I used some drywall mud and I rolled it on the ceiling and then painted it, and painted, of course, the crown molding white. And we're doing all the house walls just white. I really like how it looks, especially on smaller houses. Everything tends to go really well with plain white. So it is really coming along. One of my friends who's a retired electrician helped me pull all the wires and get all the connections done, and we've got everything lit now in the house, and that's really cool. There's a little office area, the kitchen. Most all of that stuff is on separate switches, which is nice. We got the lights and extractor fan in the bathroom. You can see the tiles are 60 by 60 porcelains. They came out really nice. I love the little shelves, the window to look out. So really happy with that. So I put about an inch of cement down on the styrofoam, and now we are laying the tiles. These are porcelain tiles that look like wood. I think they look gorgeous. So anyway, I also got this window put in today, and I really like this kind of window. Works well, closes nicely, and of course it needs cleaning. Works out really well, and the glass is sort of like mirror finish from the outside, so it reflects a lot of the solar heat away, as well as making the house a little bit more private. Gorgeous day out there. So the bathroom tile's almost finished up, and we used a lot of the adjustable leveling tile spacers, and those worked really well. We're going to do a little transition here, probably about 10 centimeters high to keep the water in the shower area. The vanity I made out of galvanized tubing. There's going to be drawers in it, and of course the washer dryer on one side, and we'll put a granite top and the sink on top. I installed the windows and doors myself, and that saved a good bit of money. All the windows and doors came out to around $1,200, and they're nice aluminum frames with the reflective glass. The air conditioning, I went with a mini split. It's 12,000 BTUs, and it barely even runs to cool the house since it's so insulated. I decided to make a giant water pot for a water garden, and it's also great if you need a giant bathtub as well. And of course, with all of this work, I'll definitely be needing a bath. You can see the finish on this is gorgeous. We used some tile grout. And here's me just about ready for my bath. And, the water is amazing. A nice bath is just what I needed after all that work. Of course, there's still a lot more work to be done. Building the kitchen cabinets and installing the granite countertops and some of the sinks and all, but I've moved into the house now and it's extremely comfortable. I love everything about it. It's really amazing. Besides a little furniture and decor, the only thing I lack for the house is a wife to make it fully complete. I think everything else is just about perfect. So I hope you really enjoyed the video, and like and subscribe if you like this kind of content. There's a lot more videos coming up shortly. So you guys have a great day. I'll be seeing you in the next one.